Welcome everybody to the Oak Park Art League and this evening's discussion with our panel of everyday activists. I'm Jill Kramer-Goldstein, the executive director here. And as some of you may know, the Art League is celebrating its centennial anniversary this year. And when we started in 1921, we were known as the Austin Oak Park River Forest Art League. And in the 40s, that changed. And so there's something very serendipitous about the fact that we now have this partnership here today with people from Austin and a great partnership that hopefully will last a very long time. So without further ado, I'd like to hand this over to Susan Stahl.
I have this, yeah. Thank you, Jill. And I want to thank not only Jill, but I want to thank her crew, two of whom are here tonight and got the YouTube set up and a lot of other things. Jeff hangs all the paintings. So I hope you've had a chance to look at the exhibit. Has anyone not had a chance yet to look at it? It's around here. It starts here and it goes in a thoughtful order. We thought through the order, and that's apparent in the booklets that are right there. And there's a quote by each activists, and you get a sense of their work through the quote. 4 of them are up here right now. And I think that the photos by Tamika Wilson turned out really well. And so we're real pleased with this. This is a project that started last August, and it's a partnership between Triton and Arbor West Neighbors. And Tamika was an intern. And it was the first time we've worked with an intern from Triton, so I think it turned out really well. There's 19 individuals who are engaged in why everyday activists? Why that title? For this project, there's 19 individuals who are engaged in social change on a daily basis. Their activism may be invisible in their own community and certainly across communities, like Oak Park and Austin, but that does not value its importance. We sought out diverse activists who are varied by gender, race, ethnicity, age, and also diversity in the focus of their activism, and you'll get a sense of that tonight. So tonight we have George Bailey, Edwina Hamilton, Marcia Borders, and I know her as Anna, but Andanita Vidyarthi. So welcome to you too. What I'm going to do is I'm going to briefly introduce, very briefly, each participant before they speak, and then they'll introduce themselves by telling you about how they came to do the work they're doing or have done, and also give you an example or several examples. We're going to try to keep this to about 12 minutes, this for each person in this particular part. And then the last question is, and you can, if you want to, you can ask questions whenever after everybody speaks. But the third question is asking, how can we strengthen the relationship between Austin and Oak Park? What would be some ideas about how we can do that? And some of us have already talked about this during these 9 months, and some of the people who couldn't be here tonight, I know some of their ideas, and a lot of them have already been ignited. So I'd like to start with I'd like to start with Anandita Vidyarthi. She is a graduate of Oak Park River Forest High School and now an undergraduate at UIC. And she's here tonight to share one of her spoken word pieces. But before she does that, I've asked her to tell you a little bit about herself. Anandita, you want to come up here? She has her own mic.
Hi, everyone.
Hi.
Hi.
I am very excited to be starting us off today. Just to get a feel of the room, how is everyone doing? Yeah? Okay, so like Susan said, my name is Anandita Vidyarthi. I am a third year at UIC. I graduated in 2019 from OPRF. And a little bit about myself. I'll start a little bit back so that we can kind of get an understanding of where my poem is going to come from, because it could be jarring otherwise. So when I came into high school, I didn't initially go to OPRF. Before that, I went to Gwendolyn Brooks. But in my freshman year of high school, I went to India, where I'm originally from, and I was born and partially raised. And it's a big change being a freshman in high school and also going to a country that I hadn't really studied in or really been really immersed in until then. And that in itself was a really shocking experience, because I, by nature, am a very shy person, and before that, I didn't really speak. I always had a lot of thoughts and really bold ideas, but before that, because of the lack of South Asian community in the U.S. in general, but also Oak Park, I felt like what I said wouldn't be heard, or at least that it wouldn't be understood. And that's not the greatest feeling. But when I came back as a sophomore, I was kind of picked up in my English class by Peter Kahn and Adam Levin, who I was thankful to work with in all 3 of my years at OPRF. And they are the spoken word teachers at OPRF, along with Christian Robinson now. And I was, I think about it now and I'm reflecting on it, how thankful I am to have, been able to work with them and to just be able to learn from them, because up until then, spoken word wasn't, I didn't even know it as an option. And really what it did for me was allow me to reflect on my creativity and also my experience as a brown woman. And the important thing about that is I had never had that space before. And spoken word having allowed me to have that space and also be around other people of color and people who were also struggling with similar issues was really empowering and really just transformative for me. And kind of that being sophomore year, junior year, again, same development of being in spoken word, working with other individuals. And coming into my senior year of high school, what that really kind of propelled me to do is not only from the encouragement of my peers in spoken word, but also through my mentors in the high school, to start a South Asian youth organization at OPRF, which had not been there before. And Sophia is here. She was also in South Asian youth with me. And 2019 was the first year that we started, and now it is going on to its 4th year. And the fact that it's going into its 4th year in itself is mind-boggling to me, because when I started it, it wasn't even an official club then. And moving into my freshman year of college, which now also seems like way long ago, I started a Chicago organization called Asian Inc., which is basically built for Asian American, and Pacific Islander individuals, and specifically creatives, to kind of foster and break down these stereotypes of Asian identifying people, and seeing them in a different light, really, as people who are multifaceted and have a number of talents that should be displayed. And that really combined my love for spoken word and art, and also my own heritage and wanting other people to embrace that. And so this poem that I'm about to read to you is called Deepest Brown, and it is the very first poem I ever wrote, actually, in sophomore year. And I performed it at the OPRF Sophomore Slam, and I actually was the runner-up winner out of 500 students. So. So yes, so this is actually my first poem, and I think that it's a really kind of roundabout thing, because I have taken a little bit of a break from writing, but to come back to perform in front of all of you lovely people and do the very first poem I ever wrote is really exciting. And this poem really touches on a lot of those kind of experiences of growing up here, growing up in India, going to high school, coming of age, and really this exploration of my identity, and also an exploration of my own creativity. So I'm going to begin. Again, this is called Deepest Brown. I am brown like tree branches, like decaying fort walls. Walls so grand great kings couldn't leave in ruins. Like desert sand so forceful it could blind, and it did. Maybe that's why they didn't like us. Yet many desire white, the aftermath of the colonized, white like thick sheets covered over the heads of baby girls, suffocated. In India, my 9th grade class belittled my shade of brown. I wonder who inflated those boys' heads so much with so much white it blinded their own nationality. They told me I could lighten my skin with milk naturally, but there is nothing natural about wanting to exchange my skin for another's, and I'm lactose intolerant, so that's far beyond my reach. Listen day after day with the craze to wash away my color, only to be left with white and red from irritation, brown to be silenced. Like tree branches, I reach out with every brown branch on our tree of colored hope, unaltered by frail lilies that will one day wither away or be plucked out for the joy of others. Thank you very much.
Good job. Okay, great job. Wonderful job, Adanita. To my left is our next panelist. It's George Bailey, who I think some of you know. George is a writer, he's an artist, he's an educator, he's a musician, and he's a scholar. And he's very, very modest. And importantly for this project and for the Oak Park Village's young people, he has been their advocate, their friend, and their mentor. So welcome, George.
Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity to share my life. I've lived in Oak Park now maybe 31, 32 years, can't remember. Both of my sons have gone through the Oak Park public school system. But before I lived in Oak Park, I lived on the north side of Chicago, and it was actually activism. You know, I don't separate it from just life. I met my wife as an activist. We were shooting pool at a community youth center down in Old Town back in 1960s Rome, right? But I've had lots of experiences working with people. I thought that I would go into the mental health industry. I've had experiences working in hospitals, mental health wards, halfway homes. I mean, advocacy is something you have to do every day in those capacities. Here in Oak Park, and I'm just going to be biggity and share this with you. You know, they didn't give me a gold watch for volunteering.
You want me to hold your mic?
Yeah, but they gave me this. It's a plaque from the youth services for.
What's it say?
It says, George Bailey, 15 years of dedicated volunteer service to Oak Park and River Forest Township. So I started there in 2005, a little after I moved to Oak Park, a few years. And that set in play just a lot of things. It helped me, how this happened is John Williams, the past director of Youth Township invited me to join the Oak Park, the Youth Services Committee. And their main role there was to find resources for what I call underpowered kids. I don't like the term at risk. It's very colonialist. So I prefer to see our kids as, rather than being at risk, I would always like for them to be viewed as being at promise. Because there's a kind of stereotype goes along with when you name someone at risk. At risk from what? Do you really care to name all of the things for which these children are at risk? And once you start going down that road, we may find ourselves somewhere at that. So I hooked up with a group of men. One, I wish you would know his name. It's Dr. Gerald Clay, who was the first organizer of what later became Apple. And I can't remember that acronym. Can anyone help me with there?
African American, what is it, Karen?
African American Parents for Purposeful Leadership in Education.
Yes. And there was an Apple organization in every school in Oak Park back in the day. And so when it moved to the high school, Katie bought a door. It was all over. But that's just my reading. There are lots of readings of it. Well, this organization strove to assist the school system in understanding the unique position that children at promise, at risk, are placed in public education. It's ongoing. You don't need to look far to find it, but here are a few what I would call hotspots. If you even begin, you can look at it at language. You know, the language that our, quote, underpowered children use in the classrooms to this day, it's still stigmatized. You can call it whatever you want, Ebonics, African American vernacular, Black English vernacular. It's not valued. It's never been valued. And therefore, a whole part of our children, when they come into public education, they're not valued. They're not. You know, you can cut that chicken any way you want. And so I was interested in that, being a person who settled in on looking at linguistics and rhetoric in my hunt for tenure. You know what I mean? And I found consonance with what John and these men. Oh yeah, these men met in my house for almost 3 or 4 years before we formed a group called a men's group. And
Original name.
A men's group. And people always got it confused with
Women's group.
no, they got no, they got it confused with theology.
Oh.
And there were some perks there, so we just let it ride. Okay. She told me that I'm doing what most college professors do. They do this. So I'm winding this up. Thank you. There are issues that with our children, our children's needs are huge, but we can't get to them. And I would continue to be an agent to help people get to the needs of our children so that our children can realize some really success in their lives. Thank you.
Thank you, George. Thank you. And you'll have time to talk with George later. Edwina Hamilton with the big Build t-shirt on, currently working at Build in Austin. Edwina has a passion for restorative justice, and that was really apparent, right, Tamika, in her interview? And so we have her quote over here. Restorative justice, I forget what it is, but that's her what she's moving towards. Edwina shared that she sees it as a way of life, cultivating relationships and building community. So welcome, Edwina.
Thank you very much. I'm very honored and humbled to be here, especially among these wonderful panelists, and to be in your company. So how did it start? We make plans and God sits back and laughs. So in my mind's eye, I wanted to focus on psychology in my undergrad because the way people's minds worked and the way they operate always fascinated me. Along that journey, I was also a divorced single parent of twins. And we went through our own challenges, me trying to hear them needing to listen to me. And I think I started building a connection with the necessity for conversation, the necessity for dialogue, and a necessity to get to know each other better. So in my travels, I started doing social work, case management. I did teaching for a while. In the midst of that, I was introduced to something called restorative justice. I said, oh, isn't this cute? This is kind of novel, Maybe I'll be able to use this somewhere down the line. It was one of my church friends that said, come on, do this training. You're going to enjoy it. I said, okay, I'll come along. And I came to find out that restorative justice, which is rooted in indigenous practices, was witnessed by Native Americans in their village and how they utilized it to help promote community. So restorative justice is a way of life. It's a philosophy. It's a means by which we can cultivate relationships while we're promoting conversations. So I'm going to stick a pin right there. That's on the back burner as I'm going forward again, making my plans, and God sitting back and laughing. So I continued with my studies. I got another degree in psychology. And then I started down the path of religious studies, theological studies. And I got another degree in that. And so in the processes of doing case management and teaching, so I left out that I am a South Sider. I was born on the South Side, raised on the South Side, and I still live on the South Side. But what I've come to find out through my work on the West Side is that my passion and my vocation came together in an intersection. And I have come to love the West Side and enjoy being here in this community. I probably almost about 4 years I've worked on the West Side, cultivating relationships, getting to know various stakeholders, whether they're residents in community, whether they're youth, young people, or whether they're parents, trying to find a way, which connected with me in the midst of trying to raise my twins, trying to find a way of how we're going to communicate. So as I started working on the West Side, I was able to bring off of the back burner the restorative justice piece and utilize that in some of the work at the particular agency I was at that time. And it was all about getting to know the community, the various resources in community, and how those resources could be connected to either individuals or to a collective body of individuals. While I was at that particular agency, my program was cut. I said, oh no, I thought I'm where I'm supposed to be. This is my passion, I'm working it. What's up, Lord? What's going on? And unbeknownst to me, there was further cultivation necessary and right connections needed. So in the processes of that, I came to know someone named Adam Alonzo, who is the CEO of Build Chicago, or Build Inc. And when he found out that my program was cut and I was very unhappy where I was, he said, there is a place for you at Build. So I started working at Build as, and I still am, manager over the community ambassadors. And what we do in community is we not only are the connectors, we help to cultivate conversations around trauma and resiliency. So no matter what we've been through, we come to realize there's a resilient factor in us to be able to either bounce back or come up from what we've experienced. And that's at the core of what we do in community, but it's also at the core of restorative justice. So along with that, we work under a program called RECAST, which is under the Illinois Department of Public Health. And it helps to cultivate those conversations around resiliency and overcoming trauma. And then the restorative justice piece as well. So no matter what background you have or what your heritage is, I think that most of us come from a history of a village where individuals sat in community. They not only sat in community, they talked about what was going on with the neighbors, what was going on with the children. How can we celebrate life? How can we address conflict? How can we minister to need? And so in those communities, everyone got to know each other. And that's at the core of what we do with restorative justice. We help to build that community and bridge gap. And we know that COVID calls for a lot of separation and isolation. And so as a tool to help bring community back, one person puts it, putting the neighbor back in neighborhood. We can come together in a circle. It can be used as peer-to-peer with young people that learn how to use the practice. It can be used as asset mapping. There's various practices under restorative justice that can help address the vast need that we see in community. And when we look at the vast need, it can be overwhelming to us. But to come up with answers or resolve, it's going to take both and answers, not either or. So it's going to be restorative justice and parenting classes, or restorative justice and mental health services. But it has to be a collaboration of resources and community to help address the need. How am I on time? Okay, so I need to wind it up. The main core of my work is in restorative justice, and the way that I got there was down a path that I never saw myself, but God knew all about. Thank you.
Thank you, Len. Our next panelist is Marsha Borders. For the past 35 years in Oak Park, Marsha has been busy. She came here as a baby. Marsha has been very busy. She's been a very busy woman. Growing up in Robert Taylor homes on the south side, Marsha experienced the effects of racially segregated housing firsthand. The initiatives Marsha has engaged in take a stand against discrimination and develop strategies for resistance and innovation.
Sorry, Susan.
Oh, I think it's fine. Should I do it again? Okay. Thank you. Marsha Borders. For the past 35 years in Oak Park, Marsha has been a very busy woman. Growing up in Robert Taylor homes, Marsha experienced the effects of racially segregated housing firsthand. The initiatives Marsha has engaged in take a stand against discrimination and develop strategies for resistance and innovation. Welcome, Marsha.
Thank you, Susan. And a warm welcome to all of the audience there. I'm truly just an average person. Susan thinks I'm an activist, but I'm just your average person. I started out on the south side of Chicago and pretty much spent many years in the Robert Taylor homes. I realized early that I did not want to end up as a statistic in the Robert Taylor. I wanted more for myself. So I ended up going to college, and I finally made my way to Oak Park, where I raised 2 daughters. They went to OPRF because I wanted to give them an opportunity to prosper, and so Oak Park, I felt, provided that for me. I came in about 1983, and about 2 years after that, I interviewed for a position on the Community Relations Commission, and I got that position and served there for 8 years as a volunteer. I was fortunate enough to serve when Sherilyn Reed was running that program. Sandra Sokol was also there on staff, and Barbara Furlong, who was a trustee at that time, was the liaison to the Internal Affairs Subcommittee on the Community Relations Commission. And Barbara, and while I was serving there, Sherilyn Reed was just magnificent. I mean, she was responsible for minimizing so much of the segregation and discrimination that occurred not only in Oak Park, but she was called to other communities to help out with plans for taking down discrimination. I mean, she was responsible for making sure that the Oak Park realtors, for example, did not allow for sale signs on lawns. Instead, if a house was put up for sale, there was a listing in the office, so people would go there to find out what was available. And that was a very good move because it prevented white flight. She worked with building owners and management to deal with issues of segregation, and she even worked with individuals. She was always called even to settle relations between individuals. I mean, she was just so sought after. So I was really fortunate to see how you really work in a situation like this, how you wheel and deal and talk to people, how to make connections, how not to burn bridges, all those kinds of things that nobody really teaches you. And so Barbara Furlong also was very involved in housing and very interested in the housing stock and discrimination as well. And Barbara Furlong asked me early on to, join the League of Women Voters. She said, I think you'd really like the League. You give it a try. I just said, oh, no, I don't think so. And she'd asked me a number of times. And finally I said, okay, I'll give it a try when I'm done here after my 8th year. And I'll try and see if I like it. So I did. I joined the League of Women Voters, and 21 years later, I'm still an active participant in the League of Women Voters. But what I didn't know at the time was that Sandra Sokol, Sherilyn Reed, and Barbara Furlong were all members of the League of Women Voters. These strong women, these devoted activists, they were all members of the League. So I found that, wow, that's, I think about that later, and it just occurred to me that that's who they were. Sandra Sokol, as you know, became the village clerk. Barbara Furlong went on to become the president of the Oak Park trustee, and Sherilyn Reed, still while working in community relationship, became the first and only Black president of the League of Women Voters of Oak Park and River Forest. So again, great accomplishments, great folks to be a part of. So during my time at the League of Women Voters, I became a registrar, and I served 15 years as a voter election judge because of the League. The League of Women Voters, people think only of us as folks that get out the vote, but the League of Women Voters, in what I've been engaged in, is a lot more than just that. At the state level, we have championed education funding throughout the entire state, equality funding. We've supported criminal justice reforms in all kinds of ways. Gun violence, for example, these are some things that we're engaged in. And how do we do this? We lobby our legislators. We go to Springfield. We work with other groups to get the job done. The League is also and I've been a part of the county level. I've been an observer for various committees, and the league has been really involved in a lot of oversight of the Cook County budget, what goes on, what they have a lot of say-so and a lot of pull, and we talk about what we don't like, what's not right, what's not fair, what's not good for people. We also are involved with the Cook County Hospital, again, oversight there, the Water Reclamation District, the forest preserves, all these things. And at the U.S. level, the League of Women Voters have filed many, many suits against gerrymandering and voter suppression in all the states. Leagues of Women Voters are located in all 50 states. And so we have a good foundation for bringing these suits. Our local leads bring them, and then the U.S. League will back them up. We have won many, many voter suppression cases as a result of the work the league does, and we partner with other agencies like ACLU and local agencies to actually get the job done. So and recently I'm doing okay.
Yeah, I want you to say this about voter suppression.
Pardon?
Are you going to say about voter suppression?
Yeah, just yeah.
Please do.
But anyway, I just wanted to mention about the voter suppression and how successful the league has been. And just recently, the league now is it's been noticed, represented more as a white group, but now they are starting to embrace diversity, equality, and inclusion in everything that they do. So I think that's a very good step. And then finally, I'd like to say how we might be able to bridge some.
We're going to talk about that last.
Pardon?
We're going to talk about
okay.
the last question.
All right. Well, anyway, that is kind of where I've been with the league, and just been really active in every way, because I love people of all backgrounds, of all ethnicities, and just think everybody's rights need to be protected. So that's why I work with the league.
Thank you.
I want to say thank you to everybody for supporting us. Unfortunately, I can't stay because I have class tonight.
I can't hear you.
Sorry. Thank you.
Oh, you want to.
Hi, everybody. Sorry. Hi, everybody. I'm Tamika Wilson, and I was part interviewer, part photographer for the exhibit. And I just want to thank you all for all of your support. I enjoyed it so much. Like, you guys don't know how much it meant to me for you guys to open up and talk to me and tell me how you made it so successful in this life that we're all trying to live successfully. I just want to say thank you and good night, because I got class. So I can't stay for long. So thank you. Goodbye.
Okay. Thank you. Bye, Tamika. Thank you, Marcia, very much. And I think that's how I met you, was the famous League of Women Voters. It's not how I met Sandra, though. Sandra, why don't you stand up and take a bow? She's one of the activists, and you got a lot of... Okay, thank you. Pastor Acree was one of our panelists, and I guess he couldn't make it. But Liz, would you mind getting up and introducing yourself and saying just a little bit about 40 Acres?
Sure.
Go ahead.
You don't need it.
Do you want to sit or stand? Go ahead and stand.
Okay.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Liz Abunaw. I am the founder, owner, and operator of 40 Acres Fresh Market. 40 Acres Fresh Market is a social impact grocer that operates out of the west side of Chicago in the Austin community. We have one simple mission, and that is to increase access to affordable, fresh food in underserved communities while helping to revitalize and rebuild neighborhood economies. We've been at this since 2018. We are a small business, and that was a very intentional decision on my part because Austin has many nonprofits. There's not a lot of commercial activity in commerce. And so I wanted to add to the economic development conversation and build something that could scale, grow, and provide community wealth. So thanks for.
Well, tell them about your current work. Where the market is going.
Yeah, so I started as how it started is 40 Acres started as a pop-up shop. We would go into neighborhood spaces like school gyms, community centers, church basements, and turn existing community space into a pop-up produce market to give people access to affordable, fresh food where they could shop in their own community. As many of you know, Austin doesn't have great healthy food access. At this point, there are only 2 grocery stores in a community of 95,000 people spread across 7.5 square miles. And so most Austin shoppers spend their money in Oak Park. And not a lot of money in Oak Park goes back to Austin. And so I wanted to change that. And so we started with pop-up markets just to see if people could come back to shop in their neighborhoods, and also so I could learn because I had no clue what I was doing. We've now moved on to pop-up markets, smaller produce stands, daily delivery service, and we are now building our first brick and mortar store at the corner of Chicago and Waller, which is set to open hopefully middle of next year, because it's not simply about food. I very firmly believe that grocery stores in particular are foundational to a neighborhood or community's economy. They provide jobs. They improve housing values. They obviously improve food access. They're social infrastructure. They're places where you run into your neighbor or your teacher or, a friend who you went to college with who you live in the same town, but you don't really see each other, but you run into each other over in the bread aisle. It creates cohesion. It creates a sense of place and community. And I felt that Austin deserved that, that many businesses are perfectly happy to take Austin residents' money without actually servicing them where they live. And I said, you are valuable as a consumer. You deserve to be serviced where you live. You shouldn't have to go over a border to get basic goods and services. And so that's what we are driving towards, and we are well on our way.
Yeah. Thank you. It's so exciting what's happening.
I want a T-shirt.
Oh, thank you.
I want one.
Oh, you want one?
You can probably order it, right?
Yeah, they're on our website.
Yeah. I think that I'm kind of torn. We can go to the biggest discussion question of the evening, which is how do we? You started it right now, Liz. I stopped Marcia from starting to talk about it, but you talk about the one-way traffic right now, from Austin to Oak Park. So how do we bridge that gap? But before we do that, would you have any questions for any of our panelists? A specific question, but because they're going to be chiming in on this last discussion, also, more than chiming in, talking about it. Anybody have any questions or comments? Comments? Okay. There's a quote from Pastor Akri that we have at the beginning of our. We have it in our booklet, and it says, it was from his interview. Tear down that invisible wall on Austin Boulevard and replace it with a bridge. And that's why there's right here the picture of the Austin exit sign off the Eisenhower, and here the same picture. And if you go you go east off of the Austin, you go Austin Boulevard. You go into Austin, obviously. If you go west, you go into Oak Park. I happen to live 5 blocks from Austin, and I go to Columbus Park quite a bit because it's one of the most beautiful parks in Chicago area. But there's this huge issue that came up in our interviews that I tried to develop questions which kind of prodded this along about how do we bridge this invisible wall? You know, how do we begin to nurture relationships? And we're going to start at the micro level, but at they call the meso level, before the macro level. How do we get people to go back and forth between the communities? How do we get Oak Parkers to go to Austin? And not as missionaries, but as partners and as neighbors. So how do we do that? And there's lots of ways, and people have, throughout this process and outside of our process, are working on some things that we can talk about. But I'm wondering if you have some ideas. And Liz, you may have to go, but do you want to just say something about your ideas? Like how you're going to have this market, and do you envision, or do you even care, actually? I guess I should use the mic. Do you have concern, like you want Oak Parkers to come, or can we order food and have it delivered? You know, do you have any ideas about that?
Yeah, I'll say that as it stands right now, especially since the pandemic hit, Oak Park is actually our biggest delivery area. And so I think that lets people step their pinky toe in and feel like, okay, here's an Austin-based business. I feel like I'm getting quality goods. I feel like I'm getting quality service. I feel like I'm getting value. So the hope is that when we set up a pop-up shop, that Oak Park will come over and shop there, especially Northeast Oak Park, because Northeast Oak Park also lacks a lot of similar resources there. I mean, Oak Park Market was open from October to February before it closed again. There aren't like those, even that small neighborhood, maybe it's only like 3,000 to 5,000 square feet place where you can just go in, get some fresh vegetables, pick up a couple of staples, and that's like your neighborhood shop, or your butcher, or a bread shop, or anything that that gives that sense of place and space and community. And so our goal is when we have our store, when the store is open, we expect Oak Park to be there. We're going to be, West Suburban is right on the western side of Austin Boulevard. It's about less than a half mile from our store. There are doctors, nurses, orderlies, support staff, patients that are there every single day. Where do they grab lunch? Well, come on over to 40 Acres. You can walk to 40 Acres. You can pick up a sandwich there. You can pick up your groceries on the way back home. So we definitely want Oak Park to be a vital part of our market. But what we're saying is that the infrastructure is going to be in Austin, because Austin deserves those sales tax dollars. Austin deserves a better built environment. We want Oak Park to make use of us, but we don't feel like Oak Park needs us as much, if that makes sense. And also, Austin, it's not just 40 Acres. There's Two Sisters Catering just opened at the corner of Chicago and Cicero, 4800 West Chicago Avenue. Sweet's Cheesecake, delicious cheesecake, is in I believe the 5200 or 5300 block of West Chicago Avenue. One of the things I first discovered when coming to the site is that currently, let's be honest, y'all use Chicago Avenue as a throughway to get from Oak Park to downtown and avoiding 290, because 290 is Nobody wants to drive on that. Okay, let's be honest. And when you use a major artery that way, you miss stuff. It's like people drive with tunnel vision. I cross Austin Boulevard and I'm not gonna look left, I'm not gonna look right, because I'm scared of what I'm gonna see. I don't wanna see what I think I'm gonna see. And so when you do that, you miss the good things that are happening there. You miss that new event space that could host your daughter's Sweet 16. You miss that spot that has great barbecue, that have been in these neighborhoods for years, but we have such a fear of what we think is going to happen there that we honestly let like that negative element win when we stay away. The more people you drive to a neighborhood or an area, the more eyeballs that are out there, the more foot traffic it has, the safer it becomes. So being part of that just makes sense. And if Austin can spend its money in Oak Park can spend its money in Austin. And I don't back down from that.
Okay, no, I don't have, I wanted you to, I stopped you because of this topic. So do you want to talk about your idea?
I want to talk about mine.
Well, mine is an easy one because it has to do with voting. And I think it would be nice if the League of Women Voters, could have some candidate forums on the west side of the city so that people can really understand what candidates stand for. Because you don't really want to go in to vote if you haven't spent any time or nobody's given you an opportunity to hear something about the candidates and what they stand for, what they don't stand for. And what I like about the League is that they ask real questions, not these watered down things that don't mean anything, which is exactly why the television threw them off and would not allow them to run candidate forums, because the League was running real forums that people could actually get information from. So I would like to see the League of Women Voters of Oak Park River Forest reach out to provide and work with. I mean, we can't just do it because the system is a little bit different. There are aldermen on that side of town, but it's different. But working together, I think we could come up with some good ways to engage voters where they would be informed, and then turnout would hopefully improve. And the second thing is our registrars go to all the high schools in Oak Park River Forest. I mean, we could also go to the high schools on the west side or in Lawndale or wherever, however far, and register seniors. Give them information about voting, get them started, in the right way to be civically engaged.
Can I?
So I take everything back to language and how people present themselves and allow other people to present themselves through language. And for me, I believe in capitalism. My great-grandpap got his 40 acres and a mule, and somebody took it back in the day. But the reality of it is we're in a hole. And while I think that a lot of people from Austin come and throw down their money, it's true everywhere in this burg, very few people from Oak Park will go and throw down their money on the west side. And there are some reasons for that are kind of murky. And I think that before you can even get a kind of back and forth egress into communities, one, I'm just going to name one, white comfort. Big time. That's a hole. We ain't going down in that hole unless we find a way to make sure that we're heard, because that's what fifth graders have taught me, that they just want to be heard. And I think that everyone wants to be heard, but I think that there are some perceived dangers on both sides of that. So in terms of building bridges, everyone has to have a similar lingua franca about it. And if we don't, we're just spitting in the wind, really. So that's my thought. How do you develop a program or a situation where people begin to really meet people authentically? Authentically, not just pretend or make-believe. And I think that when you start meeting people authentically, I know that word is cliche and overused, but you get what I'm saying, right? So those are the things for me that have to happen, not just with language, with a lot of things that we do, because there is a wall along Austin Boulevard. You know, we all know it. Anyway, there's more to that.
I love what you said about meeting people authentically, and that's what restorative justice does. It meets people authentically. It allows them to speak their personal truths in safe space. And first to the sister over here, I love that thought, and we know that food brings people together, and it bridges gaps. How many of you remember the movie The King and I, and Julie Andrews singing Getting to Know You? Getting to know all about you.
Yul Brynner.
Yes. Yes. And that's what's it's going to take between Austin and Oak Park, getting to know you. When we sit together in circle, we get to know that we have more in common than we do separately from each other. And we don't operate so much in silos. We begin to intertwine with each other. And so one thing is spreading the education, introduction of what RJ truly is more than just a means by which to address harm. It's a way to cultivate relationships and promote conversations. And that's getting to know you. And so we also want to equip youth with the understanding of RJ so that they not only can use it with their peers in peer juries or in peer circles, but they can utilize it in schools, they can utilize it in communities, and they can take it back to their households and their families where they are promoting that atmosphere of RJ. And just imagine for a moment, just close your eyes for a minute, And I want you to envision circles taking place in both Austin and Oak Park with members from both sides of the fence, sitting together all summer long, all during the warm season, the wonderful weather, and we're actually taking time to get to know each other. And so that's a big piece. It's not going to be a either-or response to the separation, but it's going to be both restorative justice and other practices that this sister mentioned, that George mentioned, that the 40 Acres mentioned. So it's going to take all those things and all of us working together to bridge the gap.
Thank you very much. We do have a panelist here who came in late. I'm going to make him be in the mush pot and come up here. This is Pastor Akri. We have a seat there. And some of you probably know Ira Akri. He's a civil rights leader, co-founder of the Leaders Network, which he can talk about, which is the social justice organization, a vehicle for advocacy in the West Side. And a refrain I heard over and over in interviews is something that I have a quote from the interview with Pastor Akri. Austin has a history of activism. The people of Austin are resilient. They know how to make the best of incredibly challenging situations. Action does motivate. It brings hope. And what we're doing right now is people have shared about their work, but we're talking about, I read the quote that you saw that's in the advertising for this event, about how we can bridge these communities. And the Leaders Circle is working on some things. The there's some economic development stuff that's happening. Do you want to talk a little bit about that, Pete? I think it's really important.
Well, I do apologize for being late. I had a funeral, and then that just kind of took my mind another place. And I said, wait a minute, I got to get over here. So I had to rush off from the family and all of that. So anyhow, yeah, one of the things we're doing, the Leaders Network, we know the reality of trying to coexist. We have to deal with the things that divide us. You know, not only deal with racism, but, you know, America is a tale of two countries. Chicago is a tale of two cities. And Oak Park and the west side of Austin, we have that wall that separates us. Now, I do appreciate the approach that many are talking about, circles and getting to know each other and being heard, but we cannot ignore the reality of the economics, the inequities. You know, I spend a whole lot of time getting to know a whole lot of people, but at the end of the day, when I go back into a community, that the school system, the quality of the school system will be determined by the tax base of the zip code. The money that, the money will divide us, and it will. That's why you have better school systems in Oak Park than you do in Austin, because you have people making more money in Oak Park. And so, we have to look at the inequities. And we do know that America was built on slavery, birthed in genocide, and committed to white supremacy. We have to deal with those three factors here locally. Birthed in genocide, built on slavery, and right now still committed to white supremacy. We have to deal with that. We have to talk about that. And we know that if one ethnic group or one race, the white race, had a 250-year advantage running the race, it would take a miracle for blacks to catch up. But we can't narrow that gap if we be fair, right? And so one of the things, we know we can't solve all of the problems, but we made up in our mind that we were going to try to address the redlining that's going on the west side. And an immediate project that we're doing is a credit union. We're doing a credit union. We're in the process of trying to raise money for it. It's going to be a big challenge, but that's what we're doing right now. Now, sometimes it feels like, and Liz is a part of that organization, and we really support the effort that she's doing, and we've really tried to help champion that, because we have inequities with the health deserts, food deserts, all of this, So we got to deal with the reality of what this racist system, institutional racism, has caused us. We have to deal with that. And many people don't want to talk about the big elephant in the room, and that's it.
Yeah.
Can I build off that for a second?
Oh, totally. Yeah. This is being taped. That's what makes it nice.
So I think that oftentimes we get this impression that the only thing that segregation wrought was separateness. And I think we have to understand that segregation is inherently unequal. It forced Black Americans to fend for themselves. It cut us off from the vehicles of wealth building, such as the ability to get an FHA loan so that we could build wealth through home ownership. it cut us out of neighborhoods, oftentimes violently, because white homeowners understood that if black people moved into their neighborhoods, then they too could be redlined and they could lose their investment. So they would actually build walls between communities. This is not simply a matter of let's get to know your neighbor. While that is nice, I think we have to understand the impact of de jure, which means by law, things like covenants, restrictive covenants, and also de facto segregation and racism, where real estate agents will steer you towards specific neighborhoods and away from others. And understanding how that has advantaged some and disadvantaged others. And so this is not simply about, okay, I'm going to be nice to the people in Austin. This means that you have to be intentional about reversing that. That means that this idea of equality is not enough. We have to strive towards equity. Because if for a century you have always gotten a marble in your jar while others got no marbles in their jar, all of a sudden at on day one of year 101, and you start putting a marble in the jar that had none, you will, but still putting a marble in your jar, you will still be further ahead. And you can't say, oh, it's not fair if this other group gets 4 or 5 marbles in their jar because now it's not equal. That's not how equity works. And so there has to be intentional focus on the people and the neighborhoods and the communities that have been historically marginalized through policy, through practice, and honestly through just benign acceptance of this just is the way it is and I'm going to do nothing to change it. That's all I have to say.
Great point. Great point.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just wanted to mention, my name is Paul Sanko.
Hi, Paul.
I am a clinical social worker, and I worked mostly volunteering at a place in Austin called Kids Express, which works with kids in grade school and high school with black mentors. So I just wanted to mention that. It's a very good program.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Can I shift and just say one?
Of course. Wait, this is an open discussion.
Okay.
You're not timed.
I think that also like I like to live in the moment, and so like during this moment right here, and I think that Americans are tasked now with resolving moments like this, where like we know what we're talking about here. We've endured it, and you guys know what we're talking about, but the reality of it is that we're in two different places as we engaged, what do you want to say, the truth of it or the sensibilities of it. And there's so like this space between us right here. And I don't get jollies from asking people to sit down and talk with one another. But if we don't do that, and I know that economics is bound up in it, because we could just say right now that the people over there have more wealth than the people up here already. So how do we mitigate that? And how do you guys feel right now when we're coming at you with this? Is it just a night where, we just, oh, okay, we heard this, like we'll go home, and, because that's what's happening in America. It really is. It's what's happening in America. People are drawing their shades, and we're in a hole, people. We're in a hole, a big hole. So that's all I wanted to say.
I wanted to jump in here. I want to go back to what, Liz, is that your name? Okay. the systemic issues are deeply embedded in the soil of this country. It started in 1619 when the first Africans reached the shores of this America to go into bondage and slavery. And so 400 plus years of systemic issues, racism, that has to be addressed. And you have to have the real, authentic conversations about what this country is built on. So speaking truth to power helps to get at the root of the problem, to cut the root off, to keep it from growing. And one of the things that we're working on in Austin is an Austin Peace and Justice Center. It will have abundant of resources that help address the needs in the community under the umbrella of a justice center. So, but it all has to start somewhere, and it has to start with speaking truth to power and naming the ugliness by which this country is built on.
Go ahead, Marcia. No, and I was going to say, and commitment from individuals to change what we've been doing. Everyone has to change. I mean, if the heart doesn't change, what's on paper doesn't mean anything. We need to have the real, genuine will to change. And if we have that, it's hard enough. If we don't have that, we have no place to start.
Other people, yes. And then, Karen, I would think you'd have some things to say.
No, it's for the, I have a couple of questions more than anything. You mentioned the tax base for the schools in Austin. Is Austin its own tax base, or are they all of Chicago?
No, it's the district.
Oh,
Yeah. School district.
wow.
Yeah, tax base of that geographical location.
Yeah. I did not know that, and I'm sure many people don't. Do you also have a charter school that's for-profit?
Oh, yeah, of course you got that. They have them in Chicago.
Because they don't have as, well, I shouldn't say.
See, in Chicago, you have some magnet schools
Right.
that are very good, some charter schools. But, you know, we believe that all children should have a right, not just certain children.
Yes.
And they shouldn't be limited to kids who win the lottery. You know, it's a right in Oak Park to get an education. It shouldn't be left to chance for kids and children in Austin.
And what about, you talked about the Peace and Justice Center. Where is it?
It's going to be right on the Bill campus. We're located at Harrison and Laramie, right on that corner.
What campus?
Build.
Oh,
Yeah, Build. We're 5100 West Harrison, right across from Michelle Clark High School. So in August, we will be breaking ground on a new building that will be attached to the building that's already there. It will be a 3-story building that will have a gym, it'll have a cafe, it will have a workout center for the community. But this, we take this for granted. It will also have a washer and dryer for kids to go and wash and dry their clothes. And so the Peace and Justice Center will be housed in the new building that's going to be constructed starting in August.
wow.
It's kind of like, but different. The new CRC that's being proposed here in Oak Park on Lake Street. Because it has all those features.
Community Rec Center?
Yeah, right. The Community Rec Center. It's a brand new building, a state-of-the-art building that's going to be built there in Oak Park. Anyway, I'm sorry, I jumped out of my lane.
Okay, no, you good.
Okay.
Liz, do you want to say something? Okay, Ann?
First of all, thank you so much, Arbor West, for coordinating this, and to each of you. except for Marcia and you, Reverend, you're strangers to me. And it's a privilege to hear your story. And I want to know so much more about your story. I just want to share what I'm feeling. And it's what I'm feeling is that clearly I would like to be part of bridging the gap. I would rather see it as a river than a built structure because rivers flow differently. And the idea of a bridge is, of course, what connects one side with the other, but it's a sort of same body of water that flows. And clearly, everything you've said about the difference between your lives and our lives. The thing that has happened to me recently is the fact that I was so busy living my life, trying to get through my life, that I really didn't see all that you have been going through. And there are just two quick examples of this recently. I'm from the South. I clearly know about racism. I mean, I was raised with I was the white person on this side of the line, and I was the white person that got to sit in the bottom of the theater while everyone else went upstairs, or et cetera. So I'm familiar with that, and I have a lot of feelings about that as a child about justice. I learned about justice there and injustice. But there were two recent examples of how different the world is, our world, and it was one with the fair tax. Marcia and some of us really, the League and our congregation at Unity Temple, and I was part of the leadership in that at tremendous controversy, where a faith community, we asked our our congregation to publicly support the fair tax. Now, there are whole sorts of issues about that, and to me, the purpose of a faith is to express your faith, not sit inside the sanctified walls, in this case, Unity Temple. Of course, it was COVID, but that's a metaphor. But that really peeled the layers off my eyes to see the policies that you're talking about. That was just one policy. And you just peel each policy back, and it's as racist as the day is long. The second thing, and George, this is something that you prompted. My daughter works for the Collaboration for Early Childhood, and I just helped her collect diapers for the little kids, the babies. And you know this. I didn't know this, but in my research, I'm an environmentalist, so I was looking for eco-friendly diapers, right? Lots of luck. But in looking at diapers, I just took it as a cause. Do you know what's on the front cover of the marketing of almost every diaper product in this country? A little cute white baby with a sweet little mom. And I was thinking, these diapers are going to a woman of color with a child of color. It starts much earlier, but it starts with the black baby's buns. It was just so, and I learned that Pampers, for the first time in 2019, actually has a black father on the cover of a Pamper diaper. My God, what I don't know. And I think that's my statement. My feeling is that I want to be part of the family, the human family. There's so much I don't know, and I don't want to talk about white privilege. I also don't want to come into Austin or any other neighborhood and say, gee, this is what I can offer. I want to know what you need and what I can do. And I'm particularly excited about 40 acres. Sonny and I are urban gardeners, veggie gardens. We grow food. We're the only community garden of its kind in Oak Park. And we love, and the whole issue of food, to me, is where the worldwide revolution is. It has everything to do with climate. It has everything to do with community. It has everything to do with economics. So I am so excited to hear what you're doing, and the fact that you listed all those other businesses, didn't have a clue. I wouldn't even know where to find those businesses. And that alone is a way that we could help build the wall across the river, not the street. I don't like streets. I like rivers. So, but I'm not being very clear about how I feel. But I'm receptive. I'm open. I want to be part of the family. I want to learn, and I want to share what my journey is. I mean, my journey wasn't, I've been an activist much of my life. I've spoken for justice. I've been involved in urban housing in Hartford, Connecticut 25, 30 years ago and led redlining teams to raise redlining. I mean, I've been through all that. And the sad thing is that was 30, 40 years ago. What you're talking about, what Sandra and what you're talking about, I did that. I integrated a black neighborhood and black back and forth. It's like, God, what do we do? How do we ever learn? And someone talked about psychology. I don't know what keeps us from learning these things. But my last comment is that I don't want to go home to my nice condo and be comfortable. I don't want that. I don't want to be behind the shield of white privilege, but I want to be a follower, and I don't want to come in and say, gee, this is what I can do for you. Like it's that famous line, I'm the government and I know how to fix things. That's not what, I may have been there years ago, but I'm not there now. And at my point in life, I don't need to lead, I want to follow.
I wanted to have you, if you don't mind, say what could happen, where can we plug into the credit union?
Okay, can I just respond to her, then I answer your question? I want to thank you.
Yes, I do too.
I want to thank you for your comments. It really means a lot because certainly our community, there's a lack of trust because of all of the history of being manipulated and the racism, so we really appreciate that because even right now in Austin, there's some suspicion by many African-American leaders when various organizations that are black-led can never get funding, but the white organizations put it like this, the white-led organizations that have black workers can get all of the resources. That happens so often. And so I really appreciate your comments tonight. This is a little statement that Malcolm Crawford told me a couple weeks ago, and a couple months ago. He said, when the white missionaries arrived, the Africans had the land and the machete. They had the Bible. They taught us to pray with our eyes closed. But when we open our eyes, they had the land and the machete, and we had the Bible. And so that is a reality that many of us, we kind of have in our mindset right there, And so I really appreciate you coming, said I want to support, I want to be a part, I want to learn, rather than coming in as the savior. Because the way the system is set up, you could come over there, and because you are white, it's set up where you could easily get so much support and finance and grants. That's just the way it goes. That's the way it goes. Years ago, Bob Van Drasik from the South Austin Coalition, he's a white guy, of course, he's Greek, but he was in love with Austin, and he said, Pastor Ira, you know it's a racist system, buddy. You just got to get you a white fund developer to come in here, and then you'll be able to play the fundraising game with the big boys. And it hurt me so bad, but it was true. It was true. So I thank you for that. Now, you wanted to ask about the credit union.
2 minutes. 2 or 3 minutes to talk about it. I think that for me personally, when I heard at the community of congregations, about the credit union and have Michelle Collins speak, and you popped in there too. I mean, that really inspired me. I went to Leaders Network meetings, and there are ways for us to plug into that.
Well, let me just say this. You know the reason why we're doing it. She mentioned it.
No. I want you to say.
Oh, we're doing it because we've been redlined for so many years, and as activists and community organizers, we've been speaking truth to power. On the West Side, some of the politicians, when I stand up in the meeting, they say, "Oh no, I hope he doesn't just mess up our meeting, because I'm going to call him out." But this is not just a call out. It's just not pointing the finger. The credit union is something substantive that we could do to address, to help people who need small business loans. Because do you not know that people in our neighborhood, not only do we get screwed with the schools, but how about this? We can't hardly have a good business because we got to pay more for loans with interest rates, and then you also got to pay more money for insurance for your building. I'm sorry about that, Liz, but it's true. And so it's difficult to get loans. So what we want to do is bring a credit union that we own, and our friends and partners who are committed to this can help us, birth it and sustain it. And you can benefit from it too, because you can be an owner eventually. And so that's the real reason for it. We want to help people with business loans, car loans, and then give them access to banks like Wintrust and other banks that we have relationships with. If you go on the leadersnetworkchicago.org, you can find information about this about this credit union that's being launched. It's really something that we want to do quite a while, but now is the time, and we have various organizations that's going to give a certain amount of money. Like I got this little church in Austin. I told our church some kind of way we're going to have to give them $10,000. All right, if that's $2,000 now, and then let's how about this, sell some barbecue dinners and raise some more. But we have various organizations going to give. One of your ministers here, Rabbi Max Weiss, has been a great supporter of ours, and I'm glad he helped, but he really embarrassed me because he brought his $5,000 before I brought mine. But I'm coming, Max, Reverend Rabbi Max, and so that's you can support us. Right now we're trying to launch it. We're trying to do the startup capital, raise money, because it takes a significant amount of money to do what's needed. We're going to either do two ways. That's the assumption, and that's taking over a struggling credit union. That's a little bit easier to do. That's what we want to do. And then you can start from scratch, which could be a real humongous challenge. And that's really not the route we want to go, which could be easily a couple $1 million. But it's not one person or two people. It's not 2 or 3 businesses. It's multiple people in the Leaders Network that's pulling together, unifying for this cause.
We don't hear enough about this. We got to hear more about it so we can get that capital, because that's where people on the other side can help too.
Right. You do have a great website.
Leaders Network Chicago. If we had big bucks, we can do commercials and let everybody else. But we don't. We don't. When I get to a meeting like this, I tell you about it. So it's leadersnetworkchicago.org. Say it with me: leadersnetworkchicago.org. And I hope. Yeah, well,
do we have a minute left?
We need someone to help with the bargaining.
Okay, Karen. Oh, Mike. Thank you, Liz. No problem.
Okay, so if we only have 1 minute, there were 2 things I was going to just mention. But one of them was, I bet the Oak Parkers don't know what you were referring. I worked for 25 years for the Chicago Public Schools, and when you referred to the lottery, I bet people in Oak Park have no idea. So correct me if I'm wrong, but what happens in Chicago is that you have your neighborhood schools, like we do here in Oak Park, But to get into a better school, there's a lottery system. And so it's not even, when you get to like Walter Payton and all those, then you have to test into those. But is it more like the elementary level to get in a more magnet school? I mean, you can't even imagine that in Oak Park. You presume that your taxes are all paying for quality schools, and it is not like that in Chicago. And so I bet people in Oak Park probably haven't heard of that, so I thought I would reference that. The only other quick thing I would say is that I was part of the Community Relations Commission, so I had not known that, and I was the organizer of the Dinner and Dialogue program. And so I know that also the Housing Center tried to do dialogues between Oak Park and Chicago, and yes, those are not what's going to necessarily change, but I do think that having cross-border conversations at least gets people to know each other and to talk like we are about maybe what change could happen. And so there is a place for that, I believe. So, thank you.
Okay. Anybody else want to say another sentence or word? Yeah, hi. Come on. Oh, Ralph Lee.
Hi.
Ralph, how you doing?
I didn't recognize him with his mask.
You know, I looked around in the room and discovered that 1/3 of the people here belong to the same church. It's
Alvin Taylor's church.
I want to start by telling a deeply held secret. George and I grew up about 25 miles apart in North Alabama. But we were separated by about 25 years, and therefore we didn't know each other. And you wouldn't believe that he's 25 years older than I am. Anyway, now let me change the subject. We've talked about and you can tell, you can see now that he's not 25 years older than I am, because I'm grasping for words. Restorative justice as an issue, academic achievement as an issue, food availability as an issue, voting rights as an issue, financial independence as an issue. And the fact is that the problems that we're here to talk about are equally connected through all of those issues. And I've had to come to the conclusion that the human mind is not capable of taking into account the separate vocabularies in each of those little systems. And so the best we can do is to work on little pieces of it here and pieces of it there, because nobody has invented a way of working on everything all at once. And it's taken me a long time to get used to accepting the fact that you can't just find one magic way of just dealing with everything. And that means that we've got to learn to live with doing things such as putting some effort into establishing a credit union and working on these things separately and giving the League of Women Voters a larger stage to operate from. And I think we have no choice but to work on these things separately, but at least have some confidence in the fact that working on these things separately will accomplish things. This is my 42nd year living in Oak Park, and I remember what Oak Park was like in 1978, and it's a whole lot better now than it was in 1978. I heard what it was like 10 years before I got here, and we're way better than that now. Austin wasn't. And what has happened in Oak Park has been very separate from what has happened in Austin. And that's another part of the problem, but it means that we've got to be able to wrap our minds around the various vocabularies that you have to have. And nobody's ever going to get to the point of being able to speak all that language.
Thank you, Ralph. I want to thank you all for coming tonight, and I think this was very instructive and important. And I'm happy that in this little booklet that we touched on, I think, every issue that was mentioned tonight, except, well, you mentioned the credit union in your interview, of the 19 activists. And I think that people sharing show the interrelationships that you're referring to Ralph, and then, you know, where we go with this. It's really up to us. So thank you all for being here. Let's give everybody a hand.
I just want to have one rebuttal. I know this is over, but Ralph, I think it's too late for us to work individually. We are forced to go down in the hall and deal with it. Not separately.
I think in the issues, though.
Okay.
I agree with you.